There's a new budget iPhone out, it's the iPhone SE, but I think for most people, the best budget iPhone is actually an iPhone 11. I originally got this yellow iPhone 11 in 2020, and both me and my girlfriend Alex have each gotten a year of use out of it. So for the purpose of this story, I took it out of the drawer, blew the dust off it, and I've been using it over the past week. The phone still feels very modern, which is something I think I'm going to be very hard pressed to say about the iPhone SE. And from sunup to sundown over the past 5 days, this iPhone 11 has been in my hand and reliable. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that it feels as fluid or looks as vibrant as something like an iPhone 13 Pro or the Pixel 6. But once I started just using this phone and not comparing it, everything started to click. I think one of the most important things people want to know about their phone is if the battery's going to last through a whole day. And with this iPhone 11, which is sitting at about 93% of its battery health because it's so old, it definitely does that. I don't know if it's going to last as long as the new iPhone SE, since I assume that new smaller phone is going to consume less power, but it's nothing to complain about here. The CPU in my unit is still running at a full 2.6 gigahertz clock speed, so even though it's got 4 more years of software updates, it should be able to last that long and be secure for that, full amount of time. I don't know if I'd be saying my model is going to last 4 more years, but I think I'm getting 2 out of it for sure.
From what I remember, I really like the color. The color was something that really was a plus for me. I was really excited about that. I like when phones have fun colors, but also the feel of it. Like the weight felt nice, the size was nice.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Honestly, I really miss it. I am using an iPhone 12. Yeah, I like the weight of it. I like the rounded edges. The camera from what I remember was pretty good. I feel like now, if I were to compare it, going back, let's do that now. I think for a 2-year-old phone, it's still pretty solid.
For me, my main pain points happen whenever I encounter any slowdown with the phone. On the iPhone 11, I wouldn't say that it's experiencing, lag, but the phone just doesn't have that new phone zip that it once had a few years ago. It's hard to tell if this is because the phone has been, heavily used, or if it's because it's just running new software on 3-year-old hardware. My boss, Patrick, MobileSyrup's resident iPhone expert, suggested that I start the iPhone 11 from scratch instead of using a cloud backup, and after I did this, it did seem to run a little better, so if you got a hand-me-down iPhone that's running a little slow, I would suggest trying that out. Also, I should mention, Pat's going to be reviewing the iPhone SE for us in a few days, so make sure to subscribe below for a fresh take on that tiny phone. Anyways though, at this point, I feel weird for nitpicking when the phone does everything I ask. I mean, this little iPhone 11, it's great. I could bring up the slightly thicker bezels or that aging 60 Hz LCD screen, but in actual use, it just fades away. I think around the release of the actual iPhone 11 2.5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago at this point, phones and the chips inside them just became good enough, They last longer than a 2-year carrier cycle now. In day-to-day use, this iPhone, it might not be as elegant as the iPhone 13 Pro or the iPhone 12, but really, I think there's only one thing that kind of sets it apart. So we know that people really want good cameras on their phones, so let's just start off by seeing what the iPhone 11 can deliver without actually being compared to anything. I've had this phone for a couple of years, so we have lots of samples to choose from, and as you can see, this camera easily holds up in 2022. Some of these are even on my Instagram, so I think we can safely say that this is a good little camera system. Honestly, going back from the 13 Pro, I really only miss the zoom lens. Sure, the 13 series camera is more capable, plus it can retain a little more highlight detail and works better in low light, but in like 90% of scenarios, the 11 is a great camera. The digital zoom can be okay sometimes, but it's not as crisp as a dedicated telephoto lens. This forced me to shoot wide or physically move the camera more, which is a fun exercise, but limiting if you do want to take pictures of something far away or even just across the street. Also in my time, I kind of have like one tip for iPhone 11 shooters. If you dive into the iPhone settings app, not the camera settings app, but the iPhones, you can disable HDR, and in some cases, this helps provide more depth and contrast in your photos. And don't worry either, because once you turn it off in the settings, a toggle will actually appear in the camera app, so you can turn it on and off a lot more easily. Overall though, these 12 megapixel wide and ultra wide cameras, when used to their strengths, deliver great results. I mean, it's still more powerful than my old iPhone 7 Plus, which was my first real push into photography. So with portrait mode here, deep fusion, and 2 lenses to play with, I think it's a fine little camera. So right now, the iPhone SE is the cheapest iPhone with a ton of modern features. If you want the most value possible and you really don't care about the feel of it in your hand, that's the phone for you. If you're looking for maybe your first iPhone, or you're on a bit of a tighter budget but you want that real iPhone experience, the iPhone 11 is the device for you. It's still a solid phone, it will likely hold up for 2 more years, and that's the length of most phone contracts in Canada and the US. I do worry that, maybe in another year and a half, the phone might get a little slower and a little more frustrating to use with more iOS updates, but honestly, my expectations have been shattered here, and the battery life still got me through. The camera was a fun challenge that I didn't feel was really letting me down, except for when I wanted to zoom. The iPhone 12 mini is about $130 more in Canada, but $100 more in the States. It has a better camera and a faster chip, so it might be the, improved choice, but it's smaller than the 11, which might annoy people with that small screen. Plus, unlike the iPhone 11, it doesn't have the reputation for having a great battery life. All I can say is, regardless of all this analysis, regardless of all the specs and all the pricing, at the end of the day, the iPhone 11, it's an iPhone, and it's a good one that I have no problem recommending in 2022. If you do want to learn more about the iPhone 13 series, check out our full review somewhere over here. If you're new to the Apple ecosystem, check out our full review on the AirPods as well, because they're pretty great. Anyways, I'm Brad Bennett. Don't forget to subscribe to help us grow the channel and to see our upcoming iPad Air and iPhone SE coverage. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Peace.